Hello and welcome along to another end of season review from this FM22 One Club story from Hemel Hempstead Town with me, Daniel. It's part 133 of the Tudor Times today, and we come back to look at season 15 and what might have been with an episode to go, because on the final 3 games of the season in the last episode, we were pipped to the post by Manchester United, and we're left asking a particular question. Has our best chance at the Premier League title gone? We lost our star man in January, the goals dried up, and that ended up costing us. We've done a lot of work for the summer though, and I've mulled over this for a couple of days before coming back because we're going to take a very calculated gamble, as the title perhaps gives a little bit away. So if you're looking forward to finding out what I've got planned for this summer transfer window here, then please do chuck a thumbs up on the video and subscribe down below for daily FM22 content. Thank you for your support with the Helsingborg save and the top 3 series. Both of those can be found in the eye above. There's also links there to the Twitch channel, the football podcast and the merchandise store too. And you can support the show as a channel member by clicking the join button down below. But today is going to be largely focused on summer plans because, unlike the last couple of years, I'm planning to change my tact a little bit here. I'm not going to go for our usual quiet summer of looking for 1 or 2 superstars because where we've got to the position now where a lot of our squad is out of contract in 2 years, Mario Ricker has left, there's pressure and interest in the likes of Ricketts, Moreira, there's so many more as well. I do feel we're coming to a bit of a crossroads where there's the potential that we could lose a lot of our best ever side. So we need to sort of turn from our hat of building a side to compete for the title to maybe our Sir Alex Ferguson hat and transitioning and rebuilding a completely new side. So we're going to go through that in a moment, but let's start by having our usual end of season review. So we've come back exactly where we finished off after our win against Spurs on the final day. So we're going to get through to the end of season review, have a look at that. We'll also meet the 3 players we've already agreed to sign and talk about how they fit into my maybe controversial, maybe surprise summer plans. You can have your vote in the comments on what you think of that later. Back in a minute for the season review though, as we reflect on our first trophyless season in 4. And there is your proof as we return for the season review. No nice cups and trophies underneath our name, but the 35-36 season, still a good one and so close to being a record-breaking one. But let's move to the new arrivals because despite what's gone wrong this season and despite those that have gone, we have managed to get some really good players. The main one of those was Ahmed Zaruk, who I know took a little bit of criticism in the comments at the start of the season, started quite slowly for us, but he's now learnt the language, he's now got used to the players he's with, and he is becoming a proper superstar wonder kid. So Zaruk is still going to be the best centre-half in the world, I'm sure of that. But we've got to make it happen over the next couple of years. Peebles was a solid backup signing. Ralph never featured at all. The ones that went out, Jasinovic, if we remember him, Scott Egan and Matthew Lindsay in the summer. But the big one, Mario Rickett in January. I know we got the most astounding fee ever. I've never sold someone for 175 million before. But was it worth it? Because we would have won the Premier League without it. And that's where the balance comes between realism and success. Because if I'd wanted to dig my feet in, we could have just kept him and gone on and probably won the league. But that wouldn't have been realistic. We waited a year. We took a bit of criticism for not selling him the January before for 160. But his value went up. It was proven right. Gives me a good method for the next few moving forward. But what a loss he proved to be come the end of the season. The positive is, and we'll talk about a few of them in a moment, the loans out have led to some really big successes this year. None less than Emiliano Rojas at Benfica, who's a wonder kid now, is becoming a star. And we're starting to see a benefit with some of these great youngsters. Where they're getting football, they're really improving. So it's maybe part of our change of strategy for next year, looking at people in the squad like Luis, the centre midfielder. We've done it before, obviously, with Rodrigo de Vita, and these players come back really improved. And as well as Emiliano Rojas, we've got the same with David Wilson, who is starting to look like he could become world-class in that number 10 role. Great determination, huge potential ability. So it's something we've got to ponder as part of our how do we transition to becoming that top-level side. We are now a very good one that can win domestic cups, that can compete in the Premier League and in the Champions League. But to take that next hurdle and build a side that can win those and win them consistently, we're going to have to make some adjustments. And these players are probably going to form part of that strategy, especially what we've seen from their experiences. I should mention Hafiz Akbar as well at 17. He looks like one that might make it too, but that's for later down the line. Let's move on to the season results, where we finish agonisingly in second place in the Premier League. 2 points behind Manchester United, and ultimately it was spells after both transfer windows that cost us again. This one in September was just a few too many frustrating draws, and at the end of the year, well, we had a good run initially after the January window, but the injuries and the lack of goals caught up. You take away the Spurs game, the 4 before the end of the season, we only scored 1 in each of those games, apart from United, where we drew a blank. So, a difficult season on that front, but the positive is we moved into a new stadium back in our hometown, and we virtually sold it out every time. The average attendance only 5 short of the capacity, and give it another year, we'll probably be looking to expand it. Champions League, an agonising first season, beaten on penalties by Valencia in the last 16, but a really good experience, a brilliant effort in the group stage, and I'm sure next year, if we get the right signings in, we'll really be able to compete. But just a timing thing again, we didn't have the striker to score the goals, and that's the difference between that game and Atletico Madrid and Shakhtar earlier in the group stages. Super Cup, that's the one that grates at me, to be honest, because that's the one we should have won. We were 3-0 up. You remember seeing it a few episodes ago. We were 3 up, we were looking confident, and we didn't adapt well tactically. And as a result of that, we threw away what would have been our trophy of the year. And I know it's not a hugely meaningful one, but if we'd won that, I'd consider this a very good season. Now, I probably consider it a just above average one. The FA Cup, disappointing, went out to Liverpool. Carabao Cup, went out to Liverpool, got battered in the second leg of the semi-final. So they're the competitions that, having won both now, we probably do have to edge to the back burner. But if we can get some brilliant youngsters in that squad, then you never know if they get the right draw. In moments to remember, we look back at the biggest win against Fulham. Oh look, Mario Rica got a hat-trick. 5-1 win at home to Atletico in the Champions League, definitely the match to remember. Some great goal scorers in there, including Carlos Martin, who scored in both goals against his former club. And then a 2-1 win away at West Ham United, saw goal of the season from Arlan in a really good display. Let's get through to the finances as we stay a 4-star reputation side. Going to keep my eye on that to see if it increases in the summer. But something I haven't seen before, and maybe just because Mario Rica's left, but all of the strikers have had their shirts outsold by John Moore, the goalkeeper. Now, he became an England international last season, so maybe that's part of it, but I'm not sure he's that popular, is he? So, when you consider Carlos Torres is competing for Premier League Team of the Year, as won European Golden Boy twice, you'd think he'd be a little bit higher up there, but no surprises with the rest of them. Just interesting to see a keeper up there, which doesn't often happen. The broadcast revenue hasn't yet ticked over for the Champions League. It will be bigger than last year, and financially, having sold someone for 175 million gives us a little bit of wiggle room for the next summer. Let's see how we lined up though. What's their best 11? No Rica, of course, having left the club. The rest of it, Zaruk's poor start probably cost him the place at centre-half, but I expect him to overtake Hanifan next year. Same maybe for De Vita in Arlan's holding role, and Arthur Ndu is going to be off with 1 year left on his contract, but largely you can't argue with that. They're all players that are in and around the first 11. The accolades, we did win Premier League Manager of the Year. So maybe the job we did is better than what we considered it. I think we actually got overachievers of the season as a club at Hemel Hempstead Town. So we're definitely doing something right. Rica, of course, broke a number of records, including record sale. And John Moore, player of the season. Maybe that's why he's become so popular. Ignacio Jura in the awards as well. Zaruk signing of the season, but one of only 3 to join the club. And the rest of it, all looking pretty good, as German Moreira edges towards the very top of world class. But we finish a good season without that spectacular moment. The Premier League title goes adrift. But look at that graphic there actually. It says an awful lot about us. 6 years in the Premier League, we mentioned it many times, we were so fortunate to survive the first season. The points tally was embarrassing. But 5 years since, we've improved every single season. And if we can do that again next year, we will be champions. But I think the next step might be the hardest one. Players inducted into the overall best 11. Dominic Chauvin is one of them and Arlan the other. Both deservedly take their places in the squad. The club vision at the moment says we're only expected to finish in the top half next year, but we have to reach the quarter final of the Champions League, something we weren't able to do this year. We'll get through the end of season review off camera in a minute. The team leaders I expect to all be here next season, although Moreira, if the right offer comes in and if he won't sign a new deal, maybe we do have to think about adjusting that. We're already starting to get some of the rumours about our players being wanted elsewhere, and as confirmation, there is our Manager of the Year award. Really did a good job, deservedly achieved, but having not won the title, we still consider it a little bit of a failure. Premier League Team of the Year includes Carlos Torres and German Moreira, two absolute gems, but will they both be here and first choice next season? Let's go and reflect on that as we head over to the squad plans, and for this, I'm going to have to include the players who are out on loan and those that have now gone on international duty, because this is going to be a surprise to some people, and this is maybe going to be a little controversial. I'll be interested to get your thoughts on it as I go through them in the comments, but I'm actually tempted to sort of, I don't want to say throw next season, because I'm not going to give up. We're still going to have a very good side, and I'd expect to compete for the top four at the very least, but I want to focus on a plan, one of those projects, to make sure that within 3 or 4 years, we can win the Premier League or Champions League. I want to have one of those done by the 20-year mark. And at 15 years here, we've got to rebuild, because our best chance was hindered by a star player being taken. And look how many are wanted now. Ricketts, Torres, Moreira, among many, many others, including defenders. Our first choice goalkeeper, not at the moment, but was until very recently. There are a lot of people here that may well be going. And if I show you the contract situation, partly my fault for letting it get there, but it has been very hard to negotiate most of the time. A lot of these wouldn't discuss deals because they were wanted by other clubs, there was interest in them, whatever other reasons they're giving. But we have got over half the squad out of contract before the end of next season. We still haven't got anyone earning more than 76 grand a week in this first team. That's all going to change very quickly, isn't it? We know next season is going to be a complete turnover, and we might have to make some big decisions in the squad. So first things first, let's get the players in general info order. I am looking at who in this squad is disposable or is currently at the peak value they can bring in for us. And the answers are Arthur Ndu, now at the age of 30, has wanted to go, reluctant to sign a new deal, certainly not for anything less than top player at the club. And he's not worth it. He's barely better than Coronel now. In fact, he's probably not at all. And German Moreira is the best player at the club alongside him. 2 of the 3 players we're bringing in this summer, who we'll meet in a minute, are midfielders as well. So that means Arthur Ndu, his time's probably up as we move along. Add to that Emiliano Rojas is coming back. He's a wonder kid. He's almost as good. He probably deserves a chance to make it. Our decision is for him and for Luis, the other wonder kid who's been on the bench this season. Do we get them out on loan to play lots of football and develop as some of the others have in the past, or do we keep them here? So unless we can get them regular football, I'm actually happy for 1 season only to make our squad a bit weaker and make sure we've got a stronger squad in 12 months' time than we've ever had, even if it's at the expense of finishing as high as this year. Because it's probably the last season we're not going to have the expectation of being a top 4 side, or the expectation of being right at the latter end of the Champions League. So if next season we can say, look, you 5 or 6 players, you're young, you won't be playing regular football, let me send you somewhere where you're going to get great facilities, great players to play with, and 40 appearances. And then come back, be world stars for us. And if that means that we then have to keep Harrison and Leacock and average backup players for an extra year, then so be it. It will be worth it in 12 months' time. So that's sort of the plan I'm edging towards next season. There are, of course, going to be some casualties. We are probably going to work with a slightly smaller squad next year. We've got some okay kids in the academy that can just fill out the squad if needed. But that's sort of my main plan, is people like Arthur Ndu, a couple of the youngsters who need regular football, and then if the option allows, people like Shane Leacock, who are 27, will be 28 by the new season. Doesn't really offer much. Look, he made 15 appearances this season, 3 of them in the Premier League. Is it worth keeping him about? What are we really gaining him? The only reason he stays is because I don't want Rojas or Luis to be caught up in the same position, where they barely play any football. So that's the possible reason for him staying. But the likes of Leacock, the likes of Jason Dolner, even Danny Harrison, case striker at the back, they're not part of our long-term squad. So if we have to be a bit shorter next season, so be it. We'll still have a very strong 11. We'll probably still have a quite strong 18. But I am going to slightly scupper our squad depth next year. Maybe give up the FA Cup and League Cup early doors to try and make sure that in 12 months' time, we have got a squad that is ready and raring to go at the top level. Now, to help that, we've already made 3 signings, which are going to help us adjust and make those squad changes, because we've got our replacement for Mario Ricca, not as good already, but an opportunity to be, and 2 very good young midfielders. So let's go and meet them before we finish. I'm sure there'll be more afterwards as well. There are actually a couple more that are coming in too, potentially, but I've had to take some gambles with work permits and things, so I can't guarantee them yet. So Ryan McIntosh is just a youngster getting released by City, but I thought worth a gamble at 18 years of age. That's the easy one to do. In midfield, we found 2 brilliant wonder kids, both for good fees as you can see. So we're going to sign these 2 lads for a combined £26 million, and we're going to sell and do for what, 30, 40 million? We'll try and get the same as Liverpool got for Mane in real life, with 1 year left at the age of 30. So Ledion Andreka is the first one from Charleroi. Holding midfielder, 12 million up front, rising to 14. Very good player. 2.5 star ability. According to the scouts, 4.5 potential. The wages aren't astronomical. In fact, they aren't for any of these players. And he's a proper wonder kid. Now, he's got a couple of weaknesses. He's not the best on the ball, not the best passer. And he's a little weaker in terms of first touch and control of the ball. But I'm looking maybe even as a centre-half further down the line. He's a really good young player and will definitely be involved in our squad. The second one is my new elite version of Christian Flores, for those of you that have been here for a number of years. Because from Olympiacos for 12.25 million, we're signing 20-year-old Stamatis Kalapathorakos. He is coming in, and that is the last time I'll say his surname, let me assure you. He's actually a natural right midfielder, and I'm going to try and retrain him, because if we look at the stats, he's a superstar. 3.5 star ability out wide, 3 star as a central player from the initial reports, but he's got everything to be a great centre mid. Having those natural winger attributes physically is great. He's got a good stamina too. Works his backside off. Good passer, great technique, loves a long shot, something we're going to keep a keen eye on. And I just think with Coronel and Moreira, this guy is probably the next one that's going to be a gem. So how could we turn down a player that good just because he doesn't fit perfectly to our tactic? Later down the line, he might well be able to adjust, but actually his stats probably suit centre mid better. He's not the best crosser of the ball. He's not the best finisher further up the pitch. So definitely someone we're going to try and retrain in that box-to-box role, and maybe a long-term replacement for Arthur Ndu. If we're then bringing in Andreka for Leacock, perhaps a year down the line we're letting a Carlos Martin go to make way for Luiz and Rojas, then we've got a really strong action-packed midfield. But this is what I mean. For a year, we're going to be slightly weaker, but give a year to these 2, then maybe give a year to Luiz and Rojas out on loan. You've got 4 superstars. That's the plan. That's what we're trying to create. Up front, I've taken a bit of a gamble on this guy. Sasa Ostrakovic, before we spotted the lad below him, was the best centre forward we could find at 20 years of age for 5.5 million. He's failed his work permit and we can't reapply till August, so it's going to be a race for him to be able to play our first few games. But he's someone I think's got a little bit of something, and for 5.5 million, it's worth the gamble. 2-star ability, similar stats to Ricky J. Jones, maybe bar a slight dip in acceleration. I just feel like he's the sort of person that could nick a goal off the bench, and another one that maybe come January time next year could go out on loan for 6 months and become a real star. So definitely someone that's a gamble and someone that may not work out, but at 20 for 5.5 million, I don't think he's someone we're going to make a loss on, and that's probably the key thing, to be honest. So probably the weakest signing in terms of potential ability that we've got, but he's still 3.5 star potential. He could still be a gem, and we're going to give him every chance to succeed. So with our 2 young midfielders of 4.5 star potential and our 1 young striker who may or may not make it, we had to find an established man. And as you can see from the bottom of the screen here, it's going to be confirmed today, and he will become the highest paid player at the club, albeit still a 5-figure salary. Stanley Azoma. I don't know which scout spotted him, but thank you, because considering the standard of strikers we had been finding that were affordable and that were under the age of 35, this guy is a gem. 22-year-old from Chelsea, Not sure why they're letting him go for this price, but he is an absolute star. He's an advanced forward. He's 16 for finishing, 16 dribbling, brilliant physicality, brilliant mentality. Technically, he's got everything. He is a proper star, and he's an out-and-out striker too. Scoring a goal a game for Nigeria, scoring 1 and 2 for Chelsea, Brentford, Swansea, wherever he's been in his club career. The only slight issue is he's a little bit shorter. He's not one of those sort of big lads that we can hump it up to, as we had before with Ricky. Mario Rica was 5'11", he was solid enough, but he's still fairly strong. He'll be great on the ball. He's a good free kick taker, which might play into our hands as well. And another one that later down the line could maybe be invested as a winger too. So he is the best replacement out there by a long shot that we've been able to find so far. And I'm looking forward to working with him. Chelsea, not a Champions League side anymore. Most players would rather join us than them now, which is a brilliant position to be in. And Stanley Azoma, a lot of my hopes rest on, because while we can start next season with Ricketts and Torres, they've both had goal droughts with regularity this year. And if we want to compete in the way we did when Rica was here, one of those two or this guy have really got to kick on. So his potential isn't much bigger. It's 3-star. A couple of the scouts had it at 3.5, but we are almost at his ceiling in terms of ability. It's whether we can just eke that little bit more out of him and get a regular scorer. Because quite frankly, I don't care what your attributes are if you're scoring 25 a season. So maybe not the Mario Rica solution, but a good player with a solid personality and goals galore at a number of levels as he stepped up from League One to Championship to Premier League, even been at Northern Ireland before that, and he's made an impact everywhere he's been. So Stanley Azoma is the man I'm resting my hopes on next year. I'm hoping there'll be more. We've got scout priorities flying about all over the place, because what we've got to do is try and make a plan to be able to compete for one of these two trophies. I don't expect it to be next year, but what do you think of my summer plans? Am I right to maybe have one of those years where we change over 5, 6, 7 first team players and really aim for the future? Think next year, can we just stay as close to this year as possible? Whether it be a top 4 place, whether it be competing in one of the cups, whatever. And then in 12 months' time, have one of the best sides in European football, with a lot of players coming into their peak years. That's my plan. What do you think of it in the comments? If you did enjoy the episode and end of season review, probably a less detailed one on other off the pitch things, but one that I had to get out the way because it is a bit of a surprise, then please do put a thumbs up on the video and subscribe down below for daily FM22 content. Check out my top 3 playlist in the eye above. A massive thank you for the support with those so far. The Helsingborg save is back tomorrow. A big decision to be made in that one. Your comments will probably shape it from the last few days. There's links up there to the Twitch channel, football podcast and merchandise store too. And above my head now is one of those top 3 episodes, which you can check out if you haven't already. Thank you for your incredible support as we complete season 15 and we make big plans for the summer, which might well backfire. But if they don't, in 2 years, this is going to be one hell of a squad. I'll see you next time to see what we've done.